Hey guys, and welcome along to another video. It's been a couple weeks since I uploaded something. I was supposed to make a video last week. I did launch the kayak. I made a bit of a mess up. I actually forgot my SD card for the GoPro. So that plan didn't go to plan. So I thought, since UK weather's been horrendous over, well, this week, we can't get out in the water, I thought we'll do something from the man cave, and I think maybe that we'll cover the 5 best modifications that I've done to the kayak. So kids are in bed finally, so I've got some time to myself. Even the beagle's in here. But anyway, without further ado, let's jump straight on in. So at number 5, I have got storage. So when I first got this one, it had basically this circular hatch was here, but it went all the way into the center of the kayak, which was no real use to me because everything disappeared basically down the front or down the back. So what I actually managed to do is I've modified effectively, well, not effectively, it is a paint pot, and glued it in basically. And the bottom of it, I've put in some foam, which is an old kneeling mat, just to shut up the weights and that are rattling around. I normally in here I keep like baiting up bits, so I've got baiting elastic and weights, things like that. Things that I obviously need to access quickly while I'm out and about. So that's part of the storage. And then also between my feet is a little pelly case, a 1040 pelly case, which is I modified. I put some elastic on it so I can quite quickly unclip it. If I'm changing lures, I can slot them in here and stop them knocking about. I've even got just a quick reminder VHF cooling procedure for a Mayday. Generally I've got that in my head, but it's always nice to have something there. So that's on there as well. So inside the pelly case is, these obviously when they come they are airtight, but which they're great because I mean they can take an absolute pasting. This one's been on here for about a year now, and yeah, I mean it's doing really well for the abuse that it takes on the seawater. So then obviously I can keep all of my my lures and stuff to hand rather than having to reach behind me. And so storage. So coming in at number 4 is my rear crate. These are a godsend really, because not only do they act as somewhere to put any extra bits or flask, or obviously in here I've got my that's the reel for my anchor. I've made them, I've got 4 rod holders. They're just made out of some waste water pipe, I think about 32mm waste water pipe. Those are, nothing's overly engineered, held together with cable ties, and here's a neat little trick. It's all clipped in using, these are bungees off of children's trampolines. So every time you get a kid's trampoline you end up with spares, so they come in handy for if you wrap them around. They come with the toggles, and then you can use like bungees and they clip in, and obviously that stops anything falling out if or when you end up capsizing. Tries to keep everything in there. So obviously the rear well, if I can show you, it's a bit difficult in my small garage. The rear well just fits. This is actually a milk crate. I've got an extra piece of pipe in here, which obviously you need somewhere for your anchor. So that's where my anchor lives, in there. So then I have, normally I've got 2 bait rods on the outside, and then I've got a small lure rod, and well, if I'm going out all day then I've got my heavier lure rod as well. And then in the front is basically another tube, and that is for my landing net normally. If I haven't got it here, it's normally laying up the front, but It's normally to hand just about here. Also added on here, it's worth noting, I've got 2 leashes, because obviously the kayaking saying goes, leash it, if you don't leash it, you lose it. So that's attached to the crate, and they go to normally my 2 most expensive rods, the 2 that I don't want to lose. I normally don't take that sort of expensive stuff out on the kayak anyway, because God forbid you might lose it. So take that into account. So this is my second crate. My first one, which I still use, was a solid box. So the solid box, same retaining of the bungees, but this one's got a swing top lid on it. The only problem and downside to that one is that the wind catches that a lot. So if it is windy, that one is a bit of a nightmare, because it tries to move the kayak around, and obviously I don't have a rudder. So with this one, the wind actually cuts through this one, so this is much better. So I've had this one for a couple months now and getting on really well with this one. So yeah, number 4, rear crate. So in at number 3 is rod holders. These are my absolute bargain. I picked 2 brand new Ram rod holders up from, I think they were on Facebook Marketplace, and absolute steal. £20, never been fitted. They retail at much more than that. Originally I was using the rear rod holders, which I had to extend, but if I was trolling along, then obviously trying to watch the tip of the rod, then it was behind you, it gets a bit disjointed, so therefore having them up front, just much better. These absolutely brilliant. I kind of fell on my feet with them. The fact that they take a multiplier reel, which if I was to pick one of these up, so not only do they take the multiplier, I'm trying to do that one-handed, they sit in there like that, or you can sit them further forward if you want. So if you're bait fishing like that, or you can then obviously fit your spinning reels. So your spinning reels can sit either inside or outside. Obviously you can also lock them in, so you can get the reel outside the cockpit, which if I go that side, you'll see that they sit well out the way. So in one rod holder, there's so many on the market, but obviously kind of beggars can't be choosers really. So if you can pick up these Ram ones, to be honest, I can't really remember the exact number of them because I didn't buy them online. If you can find those and you can recognize them, great rod holders. Okay, so at number 2 on the list is anchor trolley, which is, for those that you don't know, is basically a bit of rope that goes through some pad eyes all the way from the front, all the way, if I can get down past the car, to the back. And in this instance I've fitted again another bungee just to take some shock out of it, all stainless steel equipment, to a little pulley, and this runs up to part of the anchor trolley is also a cleat next to the seat. So what this does is, when you're not just anchoring up obviously is very important, you need one of these, but if you're drift fishing then, and you are using a drogue, which again in one of my previous videos I did briefly demonstrate, which is this kitty here. So for this to be able to work, you have to take your length of rope from your drogue, and then you feed it through the carabiner, and that's clipped off here. So obviously it's always clipped off here, because if you were to get into trouble you could cut this rope and you're away. So I don't know, if a boat was coming at you or whatever, a rogue wave or something, that's why that's like that. So what happens then is that you grab this and you pull it, and that takes it all the way to the front. Once this is up the front, obviously you can be remaining in the seat of the kayak all the time, because obviously you can't, it's not a boat, it's a kayak. You're down there, and by sitting there you can then be anchored off the front. And the same goes for the fact that all you have to do is pull here, and then you can also send it to the back. So if you're bait fishing, almost always I'm anchored off from the rear. It's something that I've been being taught as well, how to do it in strong tides, because it's something you really don't want to get wrong. Because if ever you ended up mid tied off in a strong current, it will pull you in, and the last thing you want to do is that, because you will end up in the drink. Your kayak is still anchored up and then you disappear, and then you're in a whole world of trouble. So as a matter of safety, if you are anchoring up, sort yourself out, an anchor trolley. In at number 1 on my modifications, and the one thing that I would be lost without, some people swear by them, I'm to be honest one of them, fish finder. Since I've had this, it was like day and night, because a number of reasons really. This is the Garmin Striker 4 Plus CV, I believe. We can actually check up here. So yeah, it's the Garmin Striker Plus 4 CV with Transducer kit. Not only is this obviously just a fish finder, but obviously it works, Garmin are renowned for GPS. So on the quick maps, this actually, you can draw your own depth maps. I found it, to be honest, it's not going to be a review of this, but it does draw your GPS. You can set way markers. Obviously, you can actually set routes to a GPS heading. Obviously, you can set all your headings. I've had one instance already where the mist came in off of Ladram and I could not see the shore. Thankfully with this, because it was recording and obviously it gives you your GPS heading, I could then just basically head in pretty much a northerly direction, and I was safe. I was back to shore. So not just a fish finder. Okay, so I've just put it into demo mode briefly, just so you can see, hopefully we can see what's going on. So when I'm going along, this will be the first time that we've really seen it. On the right you have clear view, so what I use mostly is that for structure. So clear view is brilliant for showing weed and, well, obviously the bottom, so you'd get weed bits, whereas the left is more for fish. Now realistically, you can see fish, you can see bait shoals really more than anything else, but it's structure that I'm interested in, because it's the difference between losing gear in rocks, because I mean if you had something like this, you definitely wouldn't want to be trying to drift for place. So since I've had this, I've lost a lot less gear. So that's kind of my main thing, and it helps if you're targeting specifically, like say flatfish. You can, if you've got flat open ground, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. And you set your waypoint, you can reset your drift, and you're really not fishing in the dark. Now my model has actually got this sun visor on, which is was kindly made by a friend of mine who I go out a lot with, which is Michael. And this is 3D printed, and I've stuck it on with a bit of Velcro. This is great. Not only does it keep like spray, if you're obviously catching waves over the front, it keeps all the spray off the screen, so you don't have to keep cleaning it, because salt water on the screen is a bit of a pain and you tend to not have something to clean it off with. So I've mounted this with 2 waterproof glands, so obviously I can remove this for transportation. And then my transducer is inside. This wet box is, again, it's another lunch box that I've actually cut the bottom out of. So if we open them up and look inside, the transducer is just sat on the hull of the kayak. And a lot of you probably thinking, how is that working? It's not in the water. So what we do is we actually, this grey stuff that you see on the inside and the outside is called duct seal, or Gardner Bender duct seal. It's actually an American thing, and it never goes off. It's super sticky and waterproof. So obviously you stick that in, and before I launch, I basically put a few cups of water, so it just covers the transducer, and then the transducer doesn't actually know the difference between the water and the kayak hull itself, so you don't have to have an external transducer or something dragging around. So once that's sealed, full of water, you just click that shut and she's good to go. So I've just pulled the battery box out as well. The battery box, basically, conveniently, it's all about, with kayaks, it's all about making something work yourself. It's a bit hard to see, but it pushes up there and it just wedges in. But it's another lunch box, and you can I can't open it up at the minute because it's a bit sealed in. But there's a 3 amp inline fuse, which is rated for the fish finder. It's held together with more kneeling pad that's cut up inside, so it cannot move at all. I've tested this, it's fully waterproof, it doesn't get wet at all. Another one of those. So also, if I need to, or when I'm done, you can just pop the connector off, and then obviously we can bring that over to the bench, and then I can plug my charger into that, and away she goes for the next time. And there we have it. So that concludes my top 5 modifications of how I've turned my run-of-the-mill touring kayak into the perfect fishing platform. Hope that's been helpful to some of you guys out there, and until next time, tight lines, and we'll see you again.